Well, hello, welcome to In Context. This particular episode of In Context is a little bit different than what Brandon and I normally do. Today we're delving in a little bit to a profile on one of the members of our church and long-time listener, first-time caller, I guess. But we're gonna dip in a little bit. So I'm gonna let my guest introduce himself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Stefan. I'm a financial advisor over at Wealthstone Finance, and been at least an attender of Stonebridge for 24 years, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Since I kind of grew up in this church, which is pretty rad.
Yeah, we're sitting in your dad's old office.
Yeah, my dad's old office,
Trippy,
which is
isn't it?
cool.
Yeah, it is cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Well, Stefan, so one of the things that we want to talk about today, before we get started, we're going to dig in a little bit to Ecclesiastes. That's where we're at in our sermon series. Yeah. And it's pertinent to what you do. Mm-hmm. But first of all, I think it's just nice for people to get a little bit of a wider profile. So what have been your major life experiences? And then how did you get into financial work?
Yeah, sure. So I again grew up here at Stonebridge, and early in my life, early in my life after meeting Jesus when I was around 18, I remember thinking, I don't know what else I'm supposed to do. Maybe I'm supposed to go into ministry. Mm. So I went to Bible college and did that, and then worked at a little Baptist church as a youth pastor for a while, and some seminary work. And during that time, the Lord just made it really clear that the ministry is not where He needs me, at least not vocationally.
Sure,
right? That's not the role He has for me. Though I love the church. I love God's people. I love being a part of the church, but I don't need to be on staff, which has been no offense to Keith, but it's pretty awesome.
No offense taken. No.
So that happened, a few years back, and since then, the big question is, all right, Lord, what do I do with my life?
Sure.
Where would you call me? And so there have been a few different things. So I, worked in sales for a little bit, and kind of stumbled my way into the finance industry. And one thing that I found really intriguing was just personal finance and budgeting, investing, protecting things that matter, having a long-term focus with money. Just really, again, intriguing and something necessary that a lot of people don't think as much about as they should.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was working at this finance company, and then I actually went through a layoff, and I went 6 months without income, which was kind of really rocked my world.
Oh, sure.
Right, really rocked my world. So during that layoff, I was able to just ask the question, what do I really love doing? What do I enjoy? What am I good at? And that led me down the path I'm in now. Sure. So during those 6 months without income, because of, one, the providence of the Lord, His protection on us, His care for us, the love of His church, but also just making wise financial decisions that I didn't realize were as wise as they were. Mm-hmm. Or one, we could weather that storm without any major hiccups in our financial plan. Right? That was just huge. And then two, during those 6 months, it allowed me to really dig into being an investment advisor, a financial advisor, getting all the licenses and certifications you need to do in order to give financial advice to people and have them pay you to do it.
Yeah, right.
Right? So there's a lot of advice that's out there that you don't pay for. Well, you get what you pay for, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I wanted to make sure that, hey, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to help manage people's money, I want to make sure that I'm as skilled at it as humanly possible.
Sure.
So, and also, from a believer standpoint, the Bible Jesus talks more about money than He does about heaven and hell combined.
Right.
So this is not a small topic, nor is it a small thing.
Sure.
So that's my story. That's how I got into what I do now. So I'm working with have a few clients at Wealthstone Financial. So we manage manage money for a few families in the area and make sure that their money is doing what they want it to do and helping them reach their goals. So,
Yeah, and that, I mean, now it's ironic. I've never been a particularly planned person as much as I've needed to be financially.
Mhm.
Like when I was younger, it was much more obvious and much more painful. As you,
I think that's true with all of us. The best lessons that we learn are the really painful
failures.
ones.
Yes, for sure. And even just with my family history, my parents had a hiccup at one point in time where we had owned a small business, and it didn't work out well and had some financial repercussions. And I watched that as a kid. And number one was like, I never want to own a business. But some of those things, they shape, even as you're growing up, they kind of shape your ideas about finances. And those can either cause really great patterns to sort of evolve in your life, or really bad patterns, depending. And so, like, for example, I'll give you a good example in terms of like finances, disordered finances. We didn't have a lot of money, so as I was growing up, when I would get money, I didn't take the perspective of, I better save this because I might not have money. It was like, I might not have money, so I better spend all this.
Yep.
Which is what a lot of people do.
Yep.
And it's very, very difficult to break out of that mindset. It's not a hoarding mindset. It's I don't have this. I'm not going to have this at some point anyway, so I might as well make it count now. Right. So, and that to kind of lead into sort of a couple things that I want to probe with you. So part of what's going on as we're preaching through Ecclesiastes is we're hitting a lot of stuff that is pertinent to everybody's life, as we would say, life under the sun. And we've got a passage that we're actually going to be going through this or the week that we're taping this and releasing this. This will be the passage that'll be preached during the Sunday services. And I'll just read a portion of it. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse. I'll go 10 through. Let's go 10 through 15. He who loves money will not be satisfied with money, nor he who loves wealth with his income. This also is vanity. When goods increase, they increase those who eat them. And what advantage has their owner but to see them with his eyes? Sweet is the sleep of a laborer, whether he eats little or much. But the full stomach of the rich will not let him sleep. There's a grievous evil that I've seen under the sun. Riches were kept by their owner to his hurt, and those riches were lost in a bad venture. And he is father of a son, but he has nothing in his hand. As he came from his mother's womb, he shall go again naked as he came, and take nothing for his toil that he may carry away in his hand. Those two, there's a couple profiles there that we see. One of the things that the preacher is telling us is the more money that you have, the more things pop up that you have to spend your money on. So you don't actually get to do with your money.
Look at this great opportunity you suddenly have
right.
that you probably don't need.
Right. And the other thing is that you get the money, or you come into some sort of financial windfall, and then in a sudden burst, you lose it anyway.
Yeah.
And so with those things in mind, again, when we're hitting Ecclesiastes, we're looking at two levels. It's life under the sun, but then life under God's economy. And so I think it's really, really helpful and important for us to at least as Christians specifically, what general attitudes and principles, should we take? What view should we take towards money? If we know that these things are true, here you can have money, and like you said, like who knows if a layoff is coming or not?
Yeah, exactly.
Or you can have a bunch of money, and then if you have kids, which I know you do, and we do, all that money you thought you were going to save for things, you end up spending on your kids while your kids are growing up, and then
suddenly there's a wedding coming up and a car that breaks down. And
I don't know. What is that like? Right? No. But all those things, with all those things in mind, I think it would be good for Christians to have a general view of money. Like, how should we look at money and finances in general?
Yeah, I think that passage is really interesting because it lays two ditches that we can fall into.
Right, sure.
Right? Either the ditch of, I've got all this wealth, so I'm going to trust in my wealth, and I can do whatever I want because of my wealth. Wealth is power, which is a real thing that people that you see in the world, right? You see people that have amassed a whole lot of wealth, and they view that wealth as a tool to hoard over other people. And I see that all day long, and it's really sad and hard to navigate. The other ditch that you see is you have people who don't have wealth, but they're incredibly materialistic. Everything's about money. Everything, whether or not they have it, it's this idol that they're striving after. And so you have the two ditches. Both are wrong, right? Money isn't power, nor is it the thing that's going to solve all of your problems.
Right, sure.
Right? So I think as you come to it, there's a couple other passages that I think help us think about money. One is in Proverbs, I think it's 20 verse 8 or 20:31. Right around there. So it's in the 20s of Proverbs, but it's an inheritance gained in haste will not be blessed.
Right.
An inheritance gained in haste will not be blessed.
So you're telling me not to play the lottery?
I mean, if you do, you got to split it with me, right? So that's the rule. No, but the idea is, and we see this, right, where a second-generation person passes away, right? Their parents pass away. Their parents have done really well. And that kid, it's like they won the lottery.
Sure.
But they didn't build the skills that their parents built, right? Their parents built all these skills and self-control around money. And then once it came to that second generation who didn't have to work for it, they just blow it all. And you see so many inheritances that don't stick with the family. I mean, that's a real challenge.
Sure.
It just gets blown. Proverbs, again, blessed is he who leaves an inheritance to his children's children. It's because you got to teach your kids how to manage that money, and then you got to teach their kids, right? But the general principles that I think every Christian needs to start with, right, is whose money is it? And the skills you have, where did they come from?
Right.
The things that enable you to do that. If you can understand that the skills you have, the money you've earned, it's not yours, you're just a steward, then you start to reframe it, right?
Sure.
Because, again, for those two ditches, money's power. I've built up all these things for myself because of how skilled I am. All right, it's not your money, right? God could easily, he causes kings to come and go, right?
Sure.
He directs the heart of the king. How much more so with you?
Yeah, right.
Right? So we've got that one ditch. All right, so money's not power because God's the one who gives money. He's the one who provides financial stability. He's all powerful. So he's really power. The other ditch where it's like, woe is me, if I only had money, that'll solve all my problems. Well, there may be a reason God isn't providing the money during that time, right? Very realistically, he might be wanting to shape that person and do a different work or teach them to not strive after money.
Right.
So on both sides of the ditch, recognizing whose it is and who gives you skill. I mean, that's you can't, I don't think you can have any foundational understanding about money or wealth without recognizing first and foremost that it's God's. Secondly, a parable that's been on my mind recently is the parable of the talents.
Oh yeah, sure.
All right, so we take the parable of the talents that's all about money and
make it about spiritual gifts.
Make it about anything but money, right? Like, don't talk about money in this parable. Where it's and like, okay, Jesus is starting off the kingdom of heaven is like, and he's using it as an analogy. Yeah. But it's a really obvious analogy. and the King of heaven, God, is the one who is the master who gave money to specific people according to their abilities. And then he left with an expectation. Sure. And I think for all of us as Christians, we have this like, oh no, we don't want to talk about money. We don't want to fall into this like health, wealth, prosperity camp. Maybe we're not equipped to talk about money. So we ignore the part where the master looks at the work of these servants according to their ability. And when they grew the money that the master had given them, he says, "Well done, good and faithful servant."
Right.
So for us as Christian stewards, one, it's not ours.
Right.
Two, he gives it according to our ability. And I think that each of us needs to work on our abilities a little bit, right?
Yeah.
If it's a valuable thing. Either increase your knowledge, right, so that
Yeah.
you can earn a greater wage,
Sure.
increase your ability to manage what he's given you. And I'm not saying that all right, God suddenly is going to give you a whole lot more money for doing that.
No, right.
But you're going to be so much better with what he's already given you. So I think those two, just if you can do those, right? One, recognize it's not yours.
Yeah.
And two, work on being a good steward,
Yeah.
right, in your own abilities. I mean, you're going to be doing really well.
Let me ask you a quick, because I've not really considered this until you brought this up right now, but it makes a lot of sense. There is this prevailing sort of hyper charismatic prosperity ideal that anybody has access to this level of stewardship. Okay, but to your point, it does very much seem what always seemed when it's not a rabbit trail, but when people take that parable of talents as like gifts and abilities, I have heard pastors a million times in talking to other pastors be like, "Oh, you're a 5-talent person. You know, you've just got so many. You're so good at so many different things." Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's even how we'll apply it. Well, this person's just gifted with a lot of things, and you're like, that's kind of. I mean, that might be true. People are gifted, but that's a little weird.
Yeah.
But we will never talk about money like that. We will never say that there might be, for some people, out of God's grace, there might be a cap on that prosperity because either God knows that your personal makeup is not capable, or I mean, you've got a ceiling. And I mean, really, and I wonder that has to be part of it. If we're gonna lay that parable out and make it apply the right way, then we would have to say that we live now in a culture where you are told, and that's like even when like online hustles live, like, hey, you can make millions and millions of dollars doing this and this and this, and now you're into this weird place where, I mean, predominantly some women, but also men too, are like basically selling their bodies online and making millions of dollars. And it seems like we're in this place now where people are like, hey, if you're willing to do whatever, you can increase your income.
Yeah.
But we would say, like, just because you can increase your income doesn't mean that is glorifying to God, obviously.
Oh, yeah,
and
doubt.
And it doesn't take into account that many of those people that might be shooting for that are not naturally or graciously equipped with God to be able to handle that level of responsibility, and they would do better to live, to be satisfied with less and manage that less well.
Yeah.
It would make their quality of life and their satisfaction with the lot that God has given them much more enjoyable than trying to strive for what Warren Buffett is hitting.
Well, and here's the thing, like those people, and like take out that group, people selling their body. Let's go to professional athletes.
Sure.
Right? How many of them are lottery winners, right?
Oh yeah.
How many of them have this huge windfall of money, but they never learned the basic financial principles to be able to manage it well. The result for all of them is the money goes away.
Right.
For all of them. I mean, it's like a universal truth, right? You're going to run out for people that aren't managing it well. So I think that in any case, they would do so well just to like recognize the things that are going on in their own heart that prevent them from managing it well.
Right.
And two, work on your own money management skills.
Yeah.
Like that is a skill. Seeing money in the bank account and not spending it is a skill and a valuable one. Not only that, but remember in that parable, the one who did the worst was not the one who went and spent it.
No, right.
He went and buried it
Right.
in a hole,
Right.
saying, "Look, I didn't lose any."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he says, "You're wicked. You're a
Yeah.
wicked servant."
Yeah.
Because all you did was protect, you hoarded
Yeah.
what you had,
Right.
rather than, and as the master said, rather than investing it in the bank and at least getting some interest on it.
Right.
Like you had, you were given a great resource and you squandered it by letting it sit there and not doing anything with it.
That's a good point. And really that helps us too. Like, but the jump back to Ecclesiastes, like the problems that we're seeing in this passage in chapter 5 and 6 has to do with just a look. If money just belongs to you on the earth, if you don't consider that the Lord is the one who blesses, the Lord is the one who takes away, that the Lord is the one who owns those things, then you're just constantly anxious about how that's going to work out. And you're more prone, probably, to try to hoard or protect rather than considering how can I use these things that the Lord has given to me to increase the knowledge of Him and His kingdom rather than just protecting mine, right?
Yeah. No, and that's good, right? Because if we don't recognize the owner, we don't recognize who it is, then of course we're just going to be anxious about it.
Sure.
Of course we're just going to be worried. We're going to say, "Oh, it's not enough. I need more. I need more. I need more," because it's all for me.
Right.
But if it's not for me, if it's not for you, then there really is a limit to how much we actually need. There's a guy named Ron Blue, and I think he's with the Lord now, but he's written a few like financial books, and he's got these 3 principles that I just love. The first is whose money is it, right? And again, it's God's money. The second is how much of God's money do you need to live? Just asking that question, which a lot of us don't. And then the third is how are you preparing the next steward? So one, we're a steward. How much of it do you actually need to live and survive? And putting a line in the sand saying, this is how much I need and I don't need any more. And then lastly, how are you preparing your children or whoever the next steward is to manage whatever you've been left with well? Because again, it's not your money, it's God's.
Right. Do you think that that's a big, I mean, you mentioned this, there's something that's happening right now that I've seen some discussions online, but also just in general principles, like with some of the financial stuff that's happening right now with markets. And a lot of older people are frustrated with younger generations because younger generations don't seem to know how to handle their money generally as well as the older generations. And now the older generations just want to use their money to live on now that they've retired in many cases. And there's a little bit of frustration, like, why would I give this money to the next generation when I know they're just going to blow it? But part of that might be that what you mentioned earlier, like we've been conditioned to believe that you need to make sure that your money is taken care of and that you're investing wisely. There's not been a lot of directed help to people, or even, I would say, especially in churches, we don't talk enough about, like, if as you're getting older, your mindset shouldn't just be like, how am I going to live when I'm older? It's how should the next generation and the next generation learn to apply biblical principles to perpetuity, right? Do you think that there's a big issue currently with the divide between how generations have approach money that is limiting both the older generations in that they don't really trust the younger generations with money, or the younger generations that many people, even in my generation, are not great with finances?
Yeah.
Like, do you see that?
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for that. But also, here's another interesting like tidbit.
Sure.
Like as they've done studies on like savings and wealth, they find that like Gen X and millennials kind of suck at it, right?
Sure.
But then these like Gen Y and Gen Z. I don't know all the
They're
gens.
rock stars.
You know,
There's a
they're
lot of
rock
gens.
stars. These young kids are rock stars at saving money. They're not spending it
Sure.
on worthless things. And I think part of it's cultural, right? Where we ascribe our value. The other thing's life stage, right? When you're older, you've got kids, you have more responsibilities. It's harder to save.
Sure.
But so we kind of see the opposite, where we've got this younger generation that's doing better than I was when I was their age.
Oh, for sure.
So so I think you kind of need to take it a little bit with a grain of salt. I do see older generations that either you kind of hit on both sides, where you've got some where they want to do all they can to bless their kids, even at their kids' detriment. Right? So you'll see that.
So giving help without the principles applied.
Exactly.
Right,
So
sure.
you'll see that at times, which is not healthy. But then on the other side, you see that to your point. I mean, there's a person I know right now who left a small inheritance to their kids, but they put it in a trust where the kids can't get to it when it would be helpful to their kids. And there's no understanding on what the rules of the trust are, and it's such a small amount that whoever said that they should put it in a trust makes no sense, right? So you've got this fear of what happens if they get it, and I think that specifically with like generations that either lived through the Depression or their parents did, they see how valuable money in the bank can be, right? How that security of something that can't be taken away from you.
Right.
It's a lot of security, but then they don't account for that money's not going as far as it used to with just inflation.
Right.
And I think really the thing isn't necessarily how much you leave to your kids or anything like that, because for the most part, people that have done a good job with their finances that I run into, their kids are usually doing pretty well on their own, right?
Sure.
Not always.
No, right. There's
but generally you see that. So I'll sit down with a retired client and ask, hey, what's the plan for this money? Are you planning on divvying up to your kids? They'll often say, my kids don't need it. They're doing better than I am. Right? So then it's a different discussion.
Oh, sure.
So I it's hard to say, oh, this is just a blanket thing, because I see every side of it, just in our current world. So.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the pushing towards that parable as maybe not primarily like what skills do you have, but what are you doing with your finances?
Yeah.
So just maybe one more question for you.
Yeah, sure.
Then. With all that in mind, like with this sort of dichotomy between this principle that we see in Ecclesiastes, which is worry, which is probably what causes us to just shove something in a bank and leave it there as long as we can. Or the other extreme, just like, well, I'm not going to have it, might as well get rid of it.
Spend, yeah.
What is maybe just one principle to help us take a balanced view at money? So like somebody's listening right now and they're trying to, maybe they're worried about like where the economy is going, like, and many people are right now. And I think that's what I want to speak to without giving any sort of like specifics, or just to say like how in this moment in time should Christians, is it time for us to freak out a little bit? Is it time, how should we approach money right now in a way that is honoring to God and still wise?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first is all the things that make us anxious in this current world. Money's only a piece of it, right? There are other things that's causing the anxiety, and we're so fixated on our money that's what we talk about. So one, cast all your anxiety on Jesus, right? He's not like when I went through my layoff season, and I know others that have been through way longer seasons than me. I was talking to one guy recently who's at about a year, and when I asked him how the hunt's going, what's going on, he's like, honestly, we're fine. Like, I don't really need to work. I'm just, and it was encouraging, just that reminder that, he feeds the sparrows, he waters the lilies, we're good to go. Right? So I think that just for our heart, I think the other one is back in Proverbs 21:5. The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. So I think for all of us, be ready for those downturns, right? And with a lot of my retiree clients, we're not necessarily worried about the downturn because we've been ready for it.
Right.
One, they've seen it a lot of times. It's going to happen again. Yeah. Two, just prepare oneself financially for those setbacks. I mean, like a general piece of financial advice that you've heard all over if you've looked for financial advice anywhere is have an emergency fund that's 3 to 6 months of your expenses. That one piece of advice requires you to, one, know what 3 to 6 months of your expenses are, because a lot of people don't, right? So one, know your budget, know how much it costs you to live, and two, requires you to set money aside for a setback. And I can tell you very, very personally that when I lost my job, that emergency fund stretched way longer than 3 to 6 months, even though I was only sitting at about a 3-month emergency fund at the time. But it was stretched. It was just like loaves and fish was how it felt like, honestly. But when you understand where your money's going, how much of it's actually going out the door, and you've done something to prepare, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, just paying attention to what's in the bank for one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a lot of people don't do.
So that would be aside from trusting the Lord, right?
Yeah.
One very practical thing is focus on being prepared again. The plans of the diligent lead to abundance. Yeah. And if you don't have those plans and you're just hasty in your decisions, it's only going to come to poverty.
Yeah.
So
that's great. Two more questions, and these are both kind of personally what you're in, and then how to get in touch with you. Like you mentioned that for some people, having a financial planner, it makes sense to pay somebody else to help you at times. Do you see generally that even when we talk about CAP and what you know about finances, even with an investment, would you consider that to be a very wise investment for a lot of people who don't either have the time or the acumen to be able to handle those things themselves?
I would tell you that the vast majority of millionaires and business owners have financial advisors.
Right. It's not like they're just geniuses that
no,
go do it themselves.
No, they are geniuses.
Right. I mean, that's what
10 times smarter than me.
Right.
Like 10 times smarter than me and fully capable of managing their own.
Right.
The difference, I think, with an advisor is it slows people down in decision making. And
that's why
oftentimes prevents someone from doing something that they could do on their own in a heartbeat, and it'd be a mistake. A market move, trying to time the market, which a lot of people brag about when they've done. Whenever I hear someone bragging about timing the market, I say run away from it. Like I get terrified because it goes both ways, right?
Sure.
So I as far as like the cost of a financial advisor, some people think, oh, this is going to be, and it could be depending on the way the advisor charges, it could be fairly expensive. But more often than not, it's cheaper than what most people think.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. So I would generally say if someone just is in a financial bind or has financial questions, reach out to a trusted financial advisor, someone that you know. So if I were looking for a financial advisor, the first thing I would do, there's a website called Broker Check.
Okay.
Broker Check, I think it's .org. It's ran by an organization called FINRA. And what it does is it catalogs if they ever get in trouble.
Oh.
It also shows you what they're licensed to do, what states they're licensed in.
Oh, that's helpful.
And every advisor I know, that's where they go to learn about other advisors. But I don't see general people just going to that, looking up broker check on advisors. You should, right?
Yeah, sure.
So broker check is a good place just to vet, hey, have they gotten in trouble? Have there been complaints?
Sure.
Are they paying their taxes?
Sure.
All that stuff comes in. So one, find someone that you trust and verify it. That's really key. And then they'll probably sit down and just give some free advice and help. I mean, most advisors like myself, we just want to help people. Like if I'm trying to help someone and it results in me getting a big fat paycheck because I helped them a certain way, and then my advice is based on the paycheck, that's not being a fiduciary. That's not working in the best interest of your clients.
Right.
You want to find an advisor that's a fiduciary that prioritizes the needs of the clients over the needs of their own.
Right.
And if you find someone that you trust that does that, and go and sit down with them, because it's probably not going to cost you as much as you think. And it's probably, not a promise, but it's probably going to help you come to a better outcome with your plans, because you're getting advice from an expert.
Nice. Great. What can you give us one resource that if people who are listening might that you would recommend to them as outside of broker check?
Yeah.
Maybe one resource that might be helpful for them if this is their first time even considering getting into anything financial.
If someone's just considering getting into anything financial, the first place I would probably go is, you might want to check with your employer. A lot of times there's 401ks or retirement plans that have advisors attached to them that you can go and see that you're already paying for, you're already getting.
Right.
So that would be one step. If you don't have that, you can always reach out to me. I'm happy to have you call Wealthstone Financial here in Cedar Rapids. You can just Google us. Because off the top of my head, I may get the phone number wrong. I'm not calling myself too often.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Wealthstone Financial in Cedar Rapids. So you can always reach out to us. We're always happy to give you an unbiased perspective on something and help out.
Great. Thanks for your time, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure I'll get a lot more questions that are more specific. But even for me, this has been extremely helpful. It makes me want to call my wife this morning and be like, hey, let's get a little bit more organized. I'm just terribly.
It's easy to get that way, and
organized.
that's where a good wife really helps out. It's a team.
I got it. Yeah. My wife is.
You married up, dude.
I did marry up, man, like 1,000 times. But well, thanks again for your time, buddy.
Absolutely, thank you.
It's nice to sit and talk with you and to ponder these principles, and that's what we encourage you to do as well as you're listening. Again, go back and maybe get a hold of the parable of the talents. Read through that and consider: are we doing that with our finances? Are we investing in finances and in every area of life for the kingdom, or are we just looking to get our paycheck and build our own wealth? That's a good question for us to ask as we walk away from a conversation like this. So thanks for joining us, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of Mosaic Wealth and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. No strategy can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Mosaic Wealth Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Mosaic Wealth is separately owned, and other entities and or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Mosaic Wealth. Mosaic Wealth does not provide tax or legal advice.